Bombshell Brunches, where your hosts Raquelle Rudenberg and Kristina Lau sip and spill with badass babes every Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday, and we're gonna talk about some dusty bones. We're gonna talk about some
I wish that I had Raquelle. I said we're going to do an episode on Dusty Bones, and she just launched into might be the worst song in the world. It was just Dusty Bones. We have Dusty Bones. I just reenacted that for you for free. So I hope you enjoyed that. This is a welcome to the Dusty Bones episode. I like to claim title to this phrase. I was talking to a friend of mine, Elliot Slynn, who is an incredible poet and songwriter, and we were having a conversation. He said, "Oh, I can't do that because of my knees," and I was like, "Oh, the dusty knees." And we had a good laugh about it. But I've been calling myself Dusty for maybe the last decade. And for those of you who can't see my face, don't worry, I'm timeless. I have no age. But I wanted to bring this up because Raquelle and I speak a lot, very candidly, when we do our brunches. When we go for brunch, we can't go for brunch right now because when we're in a pandemic, but virtual brunches with people, we talk about it. We talk about the changes. We talk about the ages. We talk about how the environment impacts us. And I mean, social, economic environment, like the other societal forces. So we wanted to just break it down for you.
Waka waka.
Is that what you have to add to what I just said?
No, that was waka, breaking waka. It down.
Oh, I see what you did there. That's... We're not showing our age at all with like dadisms. So let's talk. Let's define ageism to begin with.
Okay, well, this is unfair because Kristina looked up the actual definition of ageism.
I give you plenty of time to.
You have to say it because you have it written in front of you.
Okay, yes, I'll do the definition. What is ageism? According to the World Health Organization, ageism refers to the stereotypes, how we think, prejudice, how we feel, and discrimination, how we act towards others or oneself based on age. Now, a little fun fact, I didn't realize this, but the the United Nations launched a global report on ageism. And I just see on the World Health Organization that there was an event that just happened a few days ago about ageism. So there's so much to talk about, but I like to be very tongue-in-cheek about most things in life because otherwise I will just be a puddle and cry about all of those said things. So I go back to my original story of calling myself Dusty and saying that I was dusty boned. And I wanted to kick us off and share some brunch stories on our brunch break. I've got my tea, you've got your red wine because we're on the different sides of the world, and it's wine time for you and tea time for me. So
it's not morning for me, guys.
What's that?
It's not morning for me, guys. Although that's been known to happen. We're gonna dive into ageism. I want to talk about our favorite ageism moments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When were you most stereotyped? Like, what was a good moment where you were just like, okay.
So I'll give you a little insight. I don't really talk about this as much, but after a previous guest that we spoke to recently, I'm going to just start putting things out there. So I'm writing a book. And that book is called The 3D Artist or The 3D Artist, depending on how you read it and how you want to say it. I'm not the boss of you. And I have a section on age and it being a myth that age is an issue. I'm talking specifically about the creative industries and for me, the music industry. And you know this well. But for anyone who doesn't work in the music industry or isn't as aware, perhaps, you go into entertainment or performance or acting, anything that's in front of the camera, and you have this like stamp on your head that is an expiry date that's all but branded into you. And so I went to theater school. So this is the story from the book, and you can all buy the book when I get around to writing the rest of it. I remember going to the London School of Musical Theatre as a mature student. I was 25 and I had finished my first degree. I'd started a second degree and I'd gotten into LSMT. And that's the London School of Musical Theatre. And I was so excited. I got there and I remember day one, you sit down with all these people that you don't know, and you kind of silently judge them, because that's what we all do in the arts, especially. For me, I sit there and I'm like, I bet you they're an amazing dancer. I bet you they can sing my face off. And so you pass all these silent judges. That's not an age thing. That's just me being a monster. But I did. I sat down and someone sat down next to me, and everyone was really friendly, so excited. First day vibes. And they looked at me and they were like, oh, and I don't know how the conversation got to this, but they were like, yeah, really, this is so great. And how old are you? And I was like, oh, I'm 25. And this person literally turned to me and they were like, oh my God, don't worry. You don't look 25. And I was like, sorry? And they were like, you don't look that old at all. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, really. And I was like, is 25 old? Have I, how old are all of you? Like, what the fuck is going on? So I sat there and I looked at them and I was like, genuinely like, oh God, I'm old. I've become old, and instantly all of my happiness starts to drain. And then immediately my mechanism is to turn around and go, well, I'm going to own it. So I then spent the rest of quite a good deal of the year being like, well, I'm older than all of you. I'm
I win.
I remember looking across the circle of introductions a little bit later that day, and my now best friend Jenny Jacobs, we get to her. She was 26 maybe at the time. And so she was mature as well. And I look around the room, and not being judgmental or anything, I think she said her age. I think she said, like, my name's Jenny, and she is like just a fiery version of me. She's like, my name is Jenny Jacobs. I have a master's in whatever it was that I can't even remember. I should know. I'm a terrible friend. Jenny, what's your master's in? Oh.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. This is my name. This is what I do. These are my degrees. And I was like, she's got to be around my age. So we banded together and became Dusty as a unit. And we had another older person, in this
yes.
group. But it defined me. And then I spent the rest of my time being like, oh yeah, just super old over here in the corner, like waiting to die. And there'd just be so many moments where I was like, I did both things. I used age against myself. Oh, I'm too old for that. And I used it as an excuse, right? And I subscribed to what other people thought, and that limited my belief in terms of what I could do. And at the same time, I'd gone and had conversations with, or a little bit later, I'd started going into development with my music separately outside of theater school. And I had songwriters. I'd been lined up with some songwriters, which incidentally, not one female, also incidentally, all over 40, who said to me, the first thing they asked was, how old are you? And the second thing they said was, it's too late.
Ooh.
And I was like, I just want to gather some information to see if I want to be a songwriter. Like, a friend of mine had set me up with all these people who were very prolific songwriters, who were very successful. And every single one of them used my age as a reason for me to not be successul.
Oh, that's painful.
So that's
and it
my
goes
story.
both ways. It really goes both ways.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't even know where to start on this. I'm going to, first of all, earlier today, not because of this episode, I was Googling how to dress in your 30s. Because apparently, and I was like looking up all these things, and there's like tons and tons and tons of videos on how to dress for your 20s, how to dress for your 30s, how to dress for your 40s, because there's so many things that are like socially acceptable, but not socially acceptable if you're of a certain age. And I found it so
like
fascinating.
What? Midriffs? Don't you show that midriff after 27. Don't you do it.
Like 29 is okay, but 30 is not okay.
You can wear a paper bag. You may wear...
What are those balloon dresses that show no curve?
Yeah. By the time you reach 35, pantaloons are appropriate.
Yes.
You can just help yourself to any pantaloon style trouser pant.
Oh my God. And then the other side of it that I keep hearing about, I've got my own stories, and I will dig into my own stories after, but I have to get these off my head because I can't stop thinking about them, is this whole thing on social media where, what is it? Gen Z is talking
about...
It's not
Gens.
Gen Z. They are talking about how if you have a side part that you're old, and if you wear skinny jeans, you're old.
What? No.
And I just
I'm just brushing my hair back as we speak, putting my I don't know, what am I meant to put on instead? What's the answer? Don't just say who you are and then leave us to become dustier.
Oh my God. So you need to have a middle part, which, first of all, let me just talk about some people who had a middle part who didn't do so well in life. It didn't work for them. Let's think about some of these trends that were really in when we were young. We've done them. We've tried them. They didn't work. They weren't flattering, you know?
Oh.
They don't need to come back.
Let's just talk about the whole decade of the 80s. That was a not necessary period of time.
Like, there's some fashion trends that you know what? There's a difference between style and fashion, my friends.
Oh,
a big difference.
Yes.
And you rock that side part, is what I'm saying. It's sexy.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So as I check myself into the geriatric ward, who said that the other day? They were like, if you have kids after...
I was saying that. I was talking about geriatric pregnancies. I'm obsessed with that right now, everybody. I've been talking about geriatric pregnancies for like a good few months.
Words are really important here,
yeah.
people.
Past 35, you're geriatric. At least in one part of your life.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is why, again, I don't tell people how old I am. At some point, someone will find out, and then I'll have to kill them. But that's the other thing, actually. I want to hear your stories first, though.
Okay. So I think the biggest thing that I've been hitting recently, because I'm back in school now. So before, when I was in the workplace, it was the opposite issue of it. It didn't matter that I was even in my 30s. That was like young. And I was considered like the young person. And therefore there were certain life things that I must just not know about. So there was that whole story. And now I've gone back to school to get my master's, and I'm here in Europe. And in Europe, it's really common to just go straight through to your master's. So people go straight from their bachelor's, and they go immediately from high school to bachelor's. So they're really a lot younger than me. I definitely think I'm the oldest person in my...
Really?
Yeah, I think I am. At least, I mean, they're pretty small classes. So maybe in some of the other groups, they're older, or someone that's older. I don't know. But no, in mine, I'm definitely the oldest. And it's just like this look of shock when they find out my age. And they always do this intro thing. Everyone's like, and my name is Betsy, and I'm 23. They all say their age, and they're all so little. I don't know. They're like, this is my second master's. And I'm like, hi. I feel like I'm in an AA meeting. I'm like, my name's Raquelle. I am 30. I have lived much of the life that you have not yet.
I have a decade more. I've lived 1/3 of the time more than you.
Yeah. And now I'm in this like wonky middle place where I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm going back into the workplace. So I'm not trying to be younger than I am, but also I have kind of like a free year to be as young as I want.
Yeah, which would be great if you weren't in a pandemic.
Yes.
Now you're like, okay, body for one.
It's going to be a year and a half. We're just going to have to stretch it out a little bit.
I think when the pandemic is like, I don't know. I don't want to say over because who knows? Who knows what is life now these days? But at some point, I think that the world needs to just all agree on a 1-month holiday for everyone to just be like, go do you. We're just going to extend some benefits. Everyone just stop. Just dance off the cortisol. Dance that all away for a little while. I'm doing some joy hunting. Yeah, that's a fun. It's funny that people introduce themselves with their age. Like,
yes,
because how does that help you understand? Like, I have friends who are transnational kids. Most of us grew up hopping countries. It is a very rare existence, even in this day and age. My friends, my childhood friends, they get me on a level that very few other people I've encountered do. And it's not to say there aren't lots of people like that in the world, but it's not the vast majority by any means.
Yeah.
But when I look at those people, and then I look at someone who's grown up in one place, in one culture, their whole life, and a lot of the time a very privileged culture, and sometimes not at all, but those what shapes you, and not in a better or worse way, is just totally different. So if I have no concept of having really deep, entrenched relationships on a daily basis with people for 20, 30 years, I have no concept of that. My emotional intelligence related to that particular aspect of relating is not there. So that's not an age thing. After a certain amount of time, I don't just magically gain it. But when you're 15, you look at a 30-year-old and you're like, you could just die at any minute. You must know everything. You will have just absorbed through the universe everything that you need to know. And therefore your choices are entirely your fault. And I'm going to judge you. Maybe this was just me as a teen.
Do you remember like 30 was the age? It was like, you're a real adult at 30. 30 was like...
it was 25 for me. And
was
for
it?
most time, for the long... Because at that point, when I was 17, I'd already graduated high school. So I skipped 2 years in high school. And then I graduated really young and took a year off, and then went to university and went into a relationship where... I'll be honest, like I was like, I'm done now. And it was a very long-term one. I ran my own business. I did all this stuff. By the time I was 21, I was like, okay, 25, I'm going to have the kids, the white picket fence, the like, whatever like the life that I had created was 25 is when my life's not mine anymore. And I didn't even want kids. Like I was subscribing.
I was just going to ask that
to a societal, construct that I thought was the definition of thriving in life.
This is segueing into something that I've been really thinking about recently, which is the societal concepts of how you should live your life. And I think there's so many amazing things, and it's kind of tied into age as well. Like I've just been hearing about, especially for women, so many women who are, one, freezing their eggs, which you and I have talked about. 2, women who are like, I'm ready to have kids. I don't have a guy. I'm not going to date a billion guys and rush into something with the wrong person. I'm just going to go have a sperm donor and I'm going to have my kids. It's so much more common now that people are having kids on their own, people being women of what I know of anyways, are having kids on their own terms. They're not waiting around for anything. They're safeguarding age. They're like by freezing their eggs. Like, it's amazing.
And also, it's so interesting to have the conversation around age, because so much of what we think about is so unconscious and kind of semi-conscious, but we can't absorb everything that's happening in the world. We can't absorb everything that is happening to us. We just there's just too much information. It's an information overload at all times. So there are a number of unknown, unconscious biases that we really have a responsibility now in so many ways to bring to the surface. And age ties into so many stresses in the lives of people who grew up in any kind of conventional way. So let's say in Western society that I know of, I can only speak for the society I've grown up in, but you have these cultures where at a certain age you get married, and if you don't, then you're stigmatized. If there's, and I've felt it in different cultures in different countries in different ways. I spent 4.5 years in New Zealand, where the typical age of the people, some of the people around me, for getting pregnant and having kids was 19, 20. 19, 20, 21 is like, yeah, that's around right. You're married, you have kids, you do those things, or you start having kids, and that's just what you do. Small towns, what I've heard about small towns,
Southern states, a lot of times are like that. Yeah.
Okay. So you have these, and you grow up not thinking that you have a freedom of choice all the time in that. You grow up thinking, these are my peer groups, this is my acceptance criteria, and this is my sense of belonging. And batting against it is really hard. Like, I remember just going back to that, the conversation with the songwriting people who were genuinely telling me, for my own good, that I had no chance. And by the last one, I think I maybe met up with 4 or 5 different people over a series of coffees. And by the last one, I was like, no, I'm going to do everything I can to debunk this myth, because I cannot possibly live a life thinking that I have to subscribe to not getting what I want because of my age. When it's just my age, it's like, it's okay, fair enough. If someone says to me, like, you're not going to be a contortionist, like, I'm going to be like, if I really wanted to, I could probably get kind of close. But there's some things physiologically that are like, okay, fair. That is not one of them. And actually, on that point, so many things that we're taught to think about how people age and when they get older, what they can expect, that's also you not taking good care of yourself. Like, there's so many statistics that say when elderly people go into nursing homes or care homes, they just decline so quickly. Their health declines so much of them, they go downhill really, really fast. Now, there's a lot to be said for that being a psychological thing rather than a physical one. And I'm just not willing to, and maybe that's just me and my dusty rebellious bones.
No,
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, not going to
subscribe to that. No, it's totally true. You know who I've been loving recently, actually the entire internet has been loving recently, is Jennifer Lopez.
J-Lo is my hero and always has been. I am not on this new train. This has been a constant train. I am the biggest J-Lo fan.
Doing such amazing things, like to see her thriving, and not just J-Lo, some of the other ones.
Madonna? Can we talk about Madonna being the OG person?
Yes.
Like Madonna, J-Lo, Gwen Stefani.
Reese Witherspoon. The other thing that I'm really loving is it's Reese Witherspoon. There's a couple other actresses
Oprah?
But there's a couple other that she has worked with, and they've opened a production company, which is specifically bringing in movies and TV series that have strong female characters that are dynamic.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
really, not just in front of the light, but also really pushing movements from behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. And let's just talk about that for a second. When I was thinking about this, when I was writing this chapter in the book, I was like, let's just think about how much we've been exposed as growing up in, with Hollywood in our vision.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you watch some super old dude killing all these people with no problem whatsoever, just like going absolutely to this day batshit crazy, and the Liam Neesons of the world, which I mean, everybody loves Liam Neeson, right?
Yes.
But the point is, we have been told that men can do things for a really long time, and they get more distinguished as they get older. Whereas for some reason, women become raisins and completely obsolete. Like how is that? I don't understand how it's like, look at this wonderful person. And
yes.
like, oh,
yeah.
She's 31 now.
She's a little pruny.
Meanwhile, yeah. And I literally went back into my mental archives, but this is a really, really important aspect of unconscious bias, right? It's like, I've subscribed to that. That has become a limiting belief because I'm not thinking about it every day. I'm just exposed to it. And one of my huge, huge things with the work that I do with Prolific, with, in terms of corporate social responsibility, is understanding that we have a responsibility in entertainment, because that is one of the most glamorized industries. And it is so dangerous because we send out this messaging to people one way or another. And it becomes an unconscious bias. It becomes an unconscious limiting belief. And that's why representation, why the episode with Donna was so big with me. With Beatrice King, we are committed. You and I have always been really committed to elevating voices and with the hope that we can graduate past this having to be a discussion. I want for that to be an obsolete topic, but ageism is a huge part of that. And if I take out, how many times, for example, have you heard this? Oh, she looks so great for her age.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't count.
You see,
right? Yeah.
And you see it, and I do
or
it.
You can't be. You can't be. No, I don't see it. You can't be that age.
Oh,
I get that all the time. Like, there's no way. You don't, no, you don't look 30 or you don't look whatever.
Yeah. And do you know what? Someone said it to me a while ago. I'm going to say the other day, which could be any time between now and a decade ago, just to be really clear. But someone was like, "Oh my gosh, but you look so young." And I was like, "Do I?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they were like, "Do you not like that?" And I was like, "Oh, was that intended as a compliment?" Because I wanted to challenge them paying me a compliment about me looking young when I'm pretty happy being my age.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, started shifting the conversation. Because when someone says to me, "Oh my God, you look so young," I don't want to say thank you anymore. I don't know what that's meant to mean. When someone says, "Don't worry, you look young," like that, what that's saying is, if you looked old, I'd keep my mouth shut because that's not good. Right?
Yeah.
Inverse of what something means, which is so important for us to understand.
Yeah. And I think also then there's the other side of that, which is like, you seem so young. So I know for myself, I have a really buoyant personality. But I think what happens is then people oftentimes discount the experience you have. Like, I can't even tell you how many times, like the intelligence, sure. But I can't even tell you how many times I've had to tell someone over and over how many years of experience I have in my career. They keep thinking I've just graduated. And I'm like, no, I've been in my industry for like 8 years.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't new to me. I have this experience, blah, blah, blah. But their brains are telling them this story because they see a young face and a bubbly personality and they think, okay, you're young. So they're not listening to the words. They're listening to the story that they've created. Mm-hmm. I think I want to go back to what you were saying about the small towns and feeling like you had to get married or have kids by a certain age, I think it's so, so, so important to ask yourself why. I've been like really curious recently because I realized that I did not grow up with the conventional upbringing where I had any idea of wedding. Like, honestly, I saw myself traveling the world and having many great loves. That was that was how I saw myself. Maybe there was a mini me, but I didn't know where it came from. It just was there.
Just the store.
It was just there. I got it from a Cabbage Patch. And
oh my gosh, your kids would totally look like Cabbage Patch Kids. They would. Oh, disgusting. Buy you a Cabbage Patch Kid.
Cabbage
be like, be done
Kid with these little like dimples. Oh my God. But yeah, and I think it's so interesting because now I've been exploring like what is marriage to me? What is having kids to me? What are engagement rings about? I did not grow up with a fairy tale idea. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, I'm very happy with my idea of many great loves and traveling the world.
Sorry, which one actually? Which one sounds? They both sound
right, and
they both sound great.
I think it's so important. So then I was like, oh, maybe if I was going to get an engagement ring, maybe I'd want like one with a really big rock that looks like this. And then I like realized over time, I was like, I don't want that. Like, I feel like, diamonds are great. Down the road, I would like many of the diamonds. But the whole like ring that looks so similar to all these other rings, it's not my personality. I'm so active. Having some big rock would catch on everything. I would probably be turning it constantly or taking it off. And then I would probably lose it. Like I was like, I'm looking at this and I was like, this doesn't match me. I don't want this. But it really took me like asking why. Why do you want that? What does that actually represent? To some people, it may represent a very important cultural thing for them, right?
I love that you say that. What does it represent? What does it represent?
It's so important.
Yeah. What's the value that it represents to you? I think is a huge question to just take a minute to ask. Yeah. Great.
Right. And so many people now, especially women, are focusing more on careers and things like that. And so maybe dating and finding a husband and having kids or whatever it is taking longer. And all of a sudden I'm noticing they're happy. And then they hit 30 and they're like, holy crap, what's wrong with me? I should be married with kids. And they haven't even found the person yet or whatever it is. And they all of a sudden feel this dread or shame or like they're in a rush to do that. Why? Like you were happy yesterday. Nothing has changed.
I think, and this comes back to this whole topic. We think we have this time limit and then a specific order in which we need to do things.
Yes, the orders.
And I think at any point, like that order served society when it was largely colonized, very male dominant, when we were just coming out of the fucking dark ages, and you needed to have a second person to survive with and to, just the constructs were different. And I'm not saying I think that, there is so much to being partnered and there is so much to being self-partnered. And I think just at the beginning of understanding identity, normalizing identities, normalizing, the ability for us to explore things and not be so binary in our thoughts, and I think the term is neurodivergent is to kind of, be okay with there being different opinions and that pathway not being a pathway necessarily for you. And I used this in a lens for career pathways the other day when I was talking about it. I was like, I think the future is not a career ladder. It's a career jungle gym. And I think the reality is that's a pretty good analogy for how we construct our lives as well. We think we're constructing a life on a ladder, and that's based on binary thinking of like this rung, then this rung, then this step, then this step, and then I've reached this, and then I can, I don't know, fall off and die. I don't know what the end result of that ladder is. Nobody's really talked about it. But the idea of having a jungle gym means that there are so many different ways to get so many different ways. And if you've done well, you've climbed over the whole jungle gym and you're wherever you want to be at that point. And all of it is interconnected. And I think we lost so much of that through the colonial lens. And we lost so much of that through various biases and sometimes just from pure human nature, you know?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times what happens is we kind of have these two brain systems. And if you're brought up thinking this one thing needs to happen, and that story is reiterated to you through media, through your parents' stories, through your friends' stories, through your family member stories, and that happens over and over and over again, it becomes an automatic thought. It's not something you question because it's something you quote unquote know.
It's unconscious. Yeah.
It's unconscious. It's an unconscious belief that this needs to happen. And what people need to do is they need to switch over and start thinking cognitively about what they want, because I think there'd be a lot less unhappiness in the world if people were able to really live their lives the way that they were meant to. And if it is in that same way that you were raised to, that's fabulous. That's great. You already have yes. And if it's not, that is absolutely okay. You're going to have a fantastic life and you're going to go explore and do things your own way, you know, at your own pace and your own age.
I think I think that's where the ageism for me, it ties in with in the understanding or my construct of failure. Right? Because it's if I haven't done it by this time, then it won't look like the success that other people seem to validate.
Yes.
Right?
There's like a shame when you see people and they have this life that's the life that's quote unquote supposed to be happening. And you're like, oh, I don't know.
And I feel it. I look at some people, I've looked at friends before and been like, oh, you're a bit older than I would want to be if I did want to have kids. Like I've done that whole judgment thing and gone, oh, I wonder whether or not you're actually like happy. Who's actually like genuinely 100% happy? No, nobody is. I mean, I just want to, maybe someone is, some people are. You're not listening to this podcast. If you are, go.
I'm pretty darn happy. You know
what I mean? Like a lot of people, we're here. I did a course the other day and one of the statements was a quote that said, we're spiritual, we're human beings on a spiritual journey. And we're human, we're on this earth. And whether you're religious or not, what you believe in is not kind of, I don't want to focus on that aspect of it. But I do think that we're here to explore. We're explorers. We're not here to become happy at 20. And then what do you do for
peak at 20?
Peak at 20. And then, just slowly watch yourself become dust. I don't like. So the point is we put age into it as a metric without introducing any other factors. You know, you're like, oh, if you're 25 and you haven't made it, then the assumptions come in. The assumption that you've probably got kids, you've probably gotten married, you probably have other priorities, you probably, X, Y, Z. Like when I was first entering the industry from the acting perspective, my agent would say, one of my agents, I can't remember which agent I spoke to at the time, but they were like, the greatest number of people in this industry is 18 to 25. That's when it's hardest to get an agent. And there are two reasons. One is because that's when people have, I guess, graduated. They have the most time to explore. They're finding themselves, quote unquote. But the other one is that this industry is not as much about talent as it is about tenacity. If you lost after the age of 25 in this industry, like one, you're probably super jaded. That's not a total projection at all. I'm not jaded. It's fine. I love it. And two, you're probably very tenacious and you're willing to do it no matter what. And so it doesn't become about your age. Age then plays against you in other ways, because how many women would get roles that were 20, 25, 30 to 50? Like, look at the films that came out even 10 years ago. Your female protagonists weren't often over 30 or portrayed as over 30. So, because that's the time that you're meant to be at home with your straight white partner and having children for the greater good of nothing.
Come on now, people.
But the point is, we have these crazy ageist constructs, and then we have them in ourselves, and I think them all the time as well. And I joke around it. I'm like, I'm Asian. I'm waiting for the day that there's the stereotype of like, you don't age until you get to like 70 something and then you just overnight become like a crinkly crunkly like dumpling. And some of them are dangerous and some of them are made in jest, and some of them are and all of them are worth noting, because I've subscribed before and I call this Dusty Bones because I was like, I know I joke about it and I love joking about it, but the last thing I want to do is to encourage someone else to think that when they're over the age of 30, over the age of 40, over the age of 50, over the age of 70, that they're not relevant in conversations.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point. One of the big things that I see, because I look at a lot of journal articles and stats on what's going on, especially around communications, of course. And one of the big misconceptions that I hear from people who aren't in the same field are about how older people can't use technology, for example. But if you actually look at the numbers, that older generation is totally tech savvy. And the gap of people who aren't having smartphones or iPads or some sort of device like that, some sort of smart device, is very small comparatively to how it was just a few years ago. And it's just crazy to me when people are trying to say, that they can't use these things, that they can't have these apps. There's so much help that they could get from apps and things like that. And people aren't utilizing these tools because they have this misconception that because of their age, they can't do that.
Yes. And that's also the concept of neuroplasticity. And when people would, science would come out and say, oh, well, after this point, your brain doesn't develop anymore.
Can't teach an old dog new tricks. Is that
exactly?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, well, if everyone agrees on that, then we're just not going to try.
Yeah.
And
my grandma hates the word little and old together. She thinks it's the most derogatory thing in the world. She said, since I was young, so she would have been probably in her 60s already, like pretty young, I think. 60s is pretty young. She said, I can't stand when people put little and old. It's so derogatory for older people because it basically diminishes them to powerless. And I think that's so true. Like, you wouldn't nowadays, maybe some people would, but you're going to probably get told off. You wouldn't now come up to a woman and say, hey, little girl, like, hey, little woman.
hey, little lady.
I mean, like, you would be punched.
Yeah. See, this is again, I'm like, I have to admit, I often will be like, yeah, little. But that's because I know.
But you're saying that about yourself. You're not going to go up to another woman and tell her.
That. Oh, right. But other people say that to me. They're like, oh, you're only little. I'm like, yeah, I'm only little. But I'm also very confident in my capabilities. So that doesn't, I think, and that's an interesting one, because as we navigate into the waters of being more conscious, more inclusive, more kind of self-aware and deconstructive of harmful societal pressures.
Yeah.
We really, like, for me, I have to be really conscious that ideally what you say about me won't affect me unless
Absolutely.
I allow it. Right?
Absolutely.
And I think there's an argument for saying, like, hey, don't call someone that. And another argument for saying, I would prefer that that's not used because it offends me. And the person saying, fair enough. Thank you for letting me know. Right? You know?
So that's like cognitive therapy. I love that. I don't know if anyone's dived into that at all, but
Behavioral therapy?
Well, there's behavioral therapy, but then there's also, so basically retraining your thoughts. And so, for example, let's say you have a past trauma. It's not going to work for everybody, and it's not going to work if you're in a trauma state, which I'm not going to go into all the explanations, but anyways. So essentially what it is let's say you had something happen to you in the past and you're still holding on to it. You're angry or you're upset, whatever. The reality is you're not still physically hurting. The thought that you're carrying around about that person wronging you, whether emotionally, physically, whatever, that is hurting you. And that is completely in your control. So you can put that down or you can carry that with you. But there is no power that other person has over you. Obviously, that's a different case if you're in an actual traumatic moment. But yeah, so for people who are dealing with past thoughts, for me, that was so like amazing. And it goes to what you're saying. It was so freeing to just be like, yeah, that's true. Because we all hold on to things, whether it's like a few minutes after an argument or a few days, or
I would ruminate for months.
Yes. Or you make your own stories up about it. Like someone just did something off the cuff fast. And then you're like, well, this must mean something about me.
Oh yeah, I know. I call it bringing, my older sister calls it bringing my drama llama into the room.
My drama llama.
That's the drama llama. Okay. Oh, no, this person. And she's like, you really think that you're that important that people are spending all that time trying to find ways to bring you down? Like nobody gives a shit that much. Like, I think I preferred it when my drama llama was in the room.
We should have a talk with her. We should bring her in.
Oh, Raven. Well, we don't have a ton more time because we just go on for days.
Well, we're getting old here.
We can't. Yeah, we're just aging I was literally just going to say that. We're just gathering dust. Yeah. Does that answer your question, audiences? Yeah, good. Because you never asked and we just told you anyway. But ageism is bad.
Don't do it.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. I think
anyone can do anything at any time.
Well, let's not tell everyone to do whatever they want at all times. I don't think that's an appropriate instruction. I think our audiences are pretty self-controlled, but I don't want to take that risk. But I would say, on that note, I would encourage you to take a listen to how you think about age and how you speak about it to other people. So if you look at someone and you're about to tell them that they look great for their age, maybe just take out the for their age and just say you look great. Because that works. And when someone says you're so accomplished for your age, this was one of the big things that I love and don't love about the top 40 under 40 and the top 30 under 30.
Yes.
Because I immediately feel like I love that. And I love that you celebrate people for doing those things. But I would just also love that it's
saying if you didn't accomplish these things by 30, you're less than.
I know.
I actually have a big problem with it.
I like them in some ways because some people it motivates them. I think what I'd love is for it to be, for there to be equal, and there probably are equal kind of initiatives that celebrate people at any point. There are. I think it's important to have all of them available. I think it's just really important to create that safety for you. Because for me, that's both motivating and demotivating at the same time, because I'm running towards a certain thing and that can really spur me on to want to get more focused. But at the same time, if I don't make it, like I'd said, I wanted to go to 30 countries by the age of 30. And I didn't do that. But I also then realized that that was a pile of shit thing to want to do. And I had way more important things to do than that. Like if I really, really wanted to do it, and this is what it comes down to is prioritize what you want to do, right? What's most important to you. But really think about how you vocalize age, especially if you're young. And when I say young, I mean, and I'm just doing it now, I'm realizing young, if you are under the age of 20 and you've grown up, or you're in a position where you feel very young for whatever situation you're in, is probably a better way to put this. Consider how you have put yourself into a lens, because I can pretty much guarantee that that's the opposite limiting belief. I'm too young to know how to do that. I'm too young to deserve this accolade. I'm too young to be at this point. I thought I'm too young to be moderating these panels. I'm too young to be, and I got that a lot growing up in high school. I'm too much younger than other people to really have a say. I'm younger than these other board members, and therefore I'm probably not as experienced.
What if age was just experience? What if it was just not based on 365 days in the year, but just on milestones, your own personal milestones, your own personal.
Yeah. I mean, we're in the pandemic now. Nobody's aged. We've all aged probably decades internally from all the cortisol running all around our bodies. But I think we just need to give ourselves, an extra year and be like, you know what? We're just going to become timeless. I say that all the time.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. All right. Good job, darlings. Well done for listening. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Stay dusty and fabulous. Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.